Hey, welcome to my walk. Today I'm in the centre of Kiev, and right behind me is Khreschatyk Street, which heads that way. If you head all the way to there, to the building where you see the temperature, I'm not sure if you see it, but the one sticking up, that's the building that got burnt down, and sadly a lot of people died. I don't want to put bad things into this episode straight away, but a lot of people died during the George Soros-funded revolution that happened in Maidan and caused the toppling of the Russian-friendly president and putting in a Western-friendly president, who has since now left the building, and now we have an actor in place. Very noisy road this, because of the paving stones which are slowly getting replaced in Kiev. The roads used to all be like this, used to be cobbled roads, and everywhere you'd go you just hear a sort of constant noise, which is what you can hear in the background of all the traffic. But to avoid this road, if you want to go to Podil, which is exactly where I'm going to walk now, you can walk through the park, which is slightly away from this road. That's the Union Centre behind me, I think. It's a performing centre. I think they put on performances there. But I have to admit, I've never been. I only stood outside, but it's an interesting building. But we're going to head up towards the park, and then we're going to head down towards Podil, and I'm going to show you what the place is like. So it's all a little bit bleak because it is actually it's November, and November, obviously all the trees have started to shed their leaves. We've lost all the colours in the trees, and it's a little bit faded. Up the hill there is the puppet theatre for children. Some are up there. So it's quite an impressive monument, this. The monument that we're approaching is called the Friendship of Nations Arch. Effectively, well, I think Ukraine basically trying to be friends with the rest of the world, really. Very impressive monument. It's one of these very Soviet-inspired monuments. I have to admit, I've often wondered if the crack in the middle is deliberate or a repair job. Maybe someone can tell me. Was that deliberate? Was it always like that? I think it's almost better if it was a repair job, but I'm not sure. And then obviously here, sometimes back in the day, they used to have events. I have to admit, you don't see them often now. However, at the weekends, this place is incredibly busy, especially on a sunny day. Bit of a viewing platform up here. You can actually climb up the hill, get your photo taken next to one of the massive statues. Should we head up there and take in the view? I think so. So Kiev is going through a lot of changes at the moment. I've noticed, see, I can't get onto the viewing platform, but I guess it's for the events that take place. But as I'm saying, Kiev is going through a lot of changes at the moment. A lot of development is happening. If you compare to when the Maidan revolution was going on, and then just after that, there was a lot of uncertainty. There was a lot of people came from the east as they were sort of fleeing civil war, and they moved into Kiev. But a lot of people also left the country, but the city grew dramatically despite people leaving the country. And because of that, and once people became a little bit more confident about life, the city's really taken off. This sort of pan here. And here we are. I mean, since my original video I did on Kiev, which was a long time ago now, an Englishman in Kiev, this didn't exist. This is all new. This is sort of basically been implemented by the new administration, the new mayor. Well, not the new mayor, the new administrators. They've spent some money on the city. What we're going to do is we're going to take in the view, because previously it just used to be this, but now we got this. And I have to say, when I first saw it, I was very impressed. The first day it opened, you couldn't move there. There was literally people everywhere. Today's a Tuesday, and it's just the middle of the day on a Tuesday, and it's still reasonably busy. I was actually hoping it would kind of be empty, but it's a popular place. See, they've embraced cycling in this part of Kiev. It's actually very difficult to cycle in parts of Kiev because of the cobbled roads, but as the cobbled roads change, it becomes a little bit easier to cycle. I have to admit, because you see so few cyclists, it's not something you need to really pay much attention to if you walk on the cycling lane. You're probably, in Amsterdam you might see 10 cyclists every second. Here, you'd be lucky to see a cyclist every 10 minutes. However, the Uber delivery people, you've got to admire their leg strength. They are cycling. The bridge that you see just behind me, a very small fee that you can jump off in a bungee. I think it costs around about $10 to $15. It really isn't expensive. Normally not available during the weekdays, but if you head down there on the weekend, there's quite a few crews sort of setting up, allowing people to jump off the bridges. It's a great rush. I highly recommend it. But this is Kiev, and I don't know if you've noticed, comparing it to previous videos, it has changed. There's new development. The bridge over here is finally getting around to opening, and we've got new skyscrapers over there. You see the industrial area over there, and then we've got this sort of glass down here. I have to admit, I think the glass I just stood on has cracked at some stage. So a couple of glass panels have been replaced. I'll be honest, it's like fear of heights. So standing on the glass that has been known to crack, I'm sure it's okay now. I'm sure the engineers have fixed that problem, but it is still sort of leaves me with a little bit of like, this is a problem. So we're gonna head that direction. Normally, the path to get to Podil, back in the day, you used to have to go down these steps, or the alternative was to go around the forest over there. Obviously, you can still do both these ways, but now because of this new bridge, there's a new route. Effectively, when you were stuck on that street, to access that side was generally you'd have to climb up these very old steps. You could do it, but it wasn't obvious, such an obvious route. So the more obvious route was to head down those steps. So today, we're going to head this way. Let's see what we see. But one thing I really noticed in the last, certainly the last few days I've been in Kiev, the place is booming. The bars are extremely busy. 4 years ago that wasn't the case. Just bars at the weekends, some of them, you know, it was hit or miss if something would be busy. And to be honest, I kind of liked that, because it was just sort of almost like you had a bar to yourself and you had great service. But now it's all changed. There's foreign accents everywhere. There's Americans everywhere. There's people noticing English accents everywhere. I even noticed, I mean, there's even people from Manchester up here. I mean, I say that because I bumped into a lot of Mancunians last night. And there's new flights from Manchester. There's new flights from, I think, Liverpool. There's new flights from all over Europe. So people are coming here, and it's more accessible. And I think people realise Kiev is a safe, accessible place, and certainly worth a visit. As you will see, not one cyclist yet. I did see a cyclist in Madden Square earlier. Madden Square that way. Obviously Madden's a bit flatter. I hope cycling takes off more in Kiev, because everyone seems to be very reliant on the car. The culture over here seems to be, if you have a little bit of money, you avoid public transport. As soon as you can afford it, you avoid public transport, which is sad, I think, because the buses are very good. The underground's very good. If it takes you in the right direction, the underground's fantastic. I might do a video on how easy the underground is to use. However, because it is such a walkable city, obviously the left bank, which strangely on the map is on the right-hand side of the map, but the left bank, in my mind, requires you need to get a taxi there or a bus. You could walk it, but it's going to take a long time. If you head up the hill, you get towards actually my embassy. The British embassy is just up there, but also some amazing churches, cathedrals, and also a lot of people that sell paintings. A lot of artists sort of are up at the top there, and on the narrow streets that head down into Podil. It's one of the places worth visiting if you like sort of random bits of art and, you know, something a little bit different. But look, you can hear the road. I mean, this is one of the last remaining roads in Kiev where they've kept the cobbles. But as you can see, what a racket! And I'm glad that they're slowly getting rid of this. I've noticed since my last trip here, a lot of the roads with the cobbles, which had been there for obviously decades, have started disappearing. The roads have suddenly become very smooth again, and it's very, very quiet. And see, there's the bridge where you can jump off on the bungee. So I have to admit, I've just had to look this one up. This is apparently Volodymyr the Great monument. Bit of background on this. Apparently he was a great leader who brought Eastern Christianity to Kievan Rus, and the monument is a spectacular, wonderful view from the Volodymyr Hill. So the hill is actually named after this monument. It's strange, actually. The only time I've ever walked down here was at night time, so I haven't really fully appreciated the surrounding, the monument to an extent. Obviously, at night time you can walk down here. Kiev is safe. Most of Ukraine is safe. However, just like in any country, be alert to any problems at night time. And the reality is, it's not the Ukrainians that are probably going to be causing you problems. It's probably some low IQ foreigner who's thinks that Ukraine is their playground. And generally, the Ukrainian people are very, very, very chilled out people, very welcoming people. And on the other side, which is what we refer to as the left bank, as you can see, I don't know if you can see through the trees, you've got the beaches. Those beaches during the summer are packed, and especially on the other side when you get to the beach clubs. If you go a little bit over that direction, you get to Ibiza Beach Club. You get to no, not Ibiza Beach Club. That's in Odessa. It's Bora Bora Beach Club. The reason for the confusion is obviously in Ibiza there's a beach called Bora Bora. Hence the confusion. And there's a couple of others. There's one named after tequila. I can't remember. It's like but it's a good beach club. I'll put the name of it just here. But it's well worth a visit. It's a very good beach club. Just bring yourself, bring a smile, bring good behavior, and you'll have a good time. Other beach clubs to recommend: the Queen Beach Club, which is slightly to the south of the city, a little bit of a taxi ride away, or you can drive there, of course. And the City Beach Club, which is right in the center of Kiev. Well, not right in the center, it's just to the slightly south edge of the center in the big mall, which is the Ocean Plaza. At the top of the Ocean Plaza, you've got the big beach club. But look at these views. I mean, this is a city that stands apart from most European cities because of the river that runs through it, and it's the size of the city. It is a pretty epic city, and this is just over here. We obviously got Podil down here. North of Podil, in the sort of far distance where the big skyscrapers are, that's Obolon. A lot of new developments over there. Very grid pattern over there. Obolon, I think, is a lot of residents live there, but it's not the most interesting places. Podil, on the other hand, very interesting. Yeah, so it is a slightly different format to my usual. Rather than sort of lots of cuts, I decided this new format might be the way to go, and it might be a way of getting more videos out more quicker. Because the biggest problem I've had is because I've had my general videos in the past have been, to be honest, most people have said it, way too long. However, I do appreciate those people that do watch those long videos. It takes time to sort of put everything together. It takes time to sit down and just get the content ready and sort of put the music over it. And actually, to be honest, when I first started it, just even learn to edit. When I first started doing it, I did it on my phone. Now I've just sort of upgraded to a pretty basic Sony action cam. The link is in the description if you're interested in one yourself. Look at this. Almost like David Attenborough here. What's amazing is in the UK, you'll never see a red squirrel, ever. But here, honestly, that's something that, as a British citizen who's grown up in the United Kingdom, we hear about basically the mass wipeout of the grey squirrel, of the red squirrel. This is what happens when the native population sort of has to compete against sort of a foreign invader. The greys were the foreign invader. They came from, I think, North America, and they came straight into the UK. And the greys, I think the last last bit of habitat. There's some in Scotland, and I think there's some in the north of England. But reality is, I've never seen one in the UK. Grey squirrels everywhere, and as much as I like grey squirrels, isn't it a shame that by introducing a foreign species that we lose, an amazing species like that? But it looks like I'm gonna have to go around because look, as you can see, the park is still being built. There's a lot of development going on. The steps are being improved. That path didn't used to exist last time I was here, and these guys have gone to work on the path. And I tell you something, they build things in this country to last. These are granite steps. Some of these steps, and they do it so well. You notice the marble, the shininess of these granite steps. It's impressive workmanship, and they do this all over their parks in Ukraine. I just hope I can get down because it's the ambition is we're going down there, but the workmanship may not allow it. So this video may come to an abrupt end as I realize I'm going to have to go back on myself. However, by the time that you take the same path, I'm pretty sure that these steps will be ready. The people work here pretty fast. I have to admit, maybe someone in the comments below can tell me how many parks are there in Kiev? There's a lot of parks. Some of the parks in the center very well manicured. Obviously, this is a sort of halfway house, which I think it kind of brought two cities together, because Podil, before the sort of urban sprawl of what Kiev is now, used to be in a separate entity. So it's effectively, back in the day, Podil was a little town, maybe even a village, and as Kiev expanded, Kiev obviously sucked in what Podil now is. Now Podil is just considered a district, or a borough, as we would say in the UK, but I'm sure it's a district over here. And down here, it looks like I can get down. I hope. I'm not sure. I'm honestly not sure if I can get down, because the last time I came this way, I took the path that way. So this is almost new. It's a new adventure for me, strangely. Okay, so this is the usual way that people basically get from Podil up to the top where the big cathedral is, and up to the, almost close to where the British Embassy is, actually. They take the very old, it's almost like a cable car type train. It's similar to what you would see, well, actually, when I was in, where was I? I was in Budapest recently, and I think I made a video about it. So in Budapest, similar vibe. I think in Vienna, exactly the same sort of vibe. These things are everywhere, and you basically pay, unlike in Vienna and Budapest, it's slightly cheaper here to get the cable car, either down or up. But it's a sort of, I think it's a, you know what, I'll try and find out how much it is, because the price is changing all the time. There's huge inflation going on in Ukraine at the moment. Since we had the revolution, we had the currency crisis. There was the Ukrainian hryvnia dropped from, I think, 10 all the way up. I think it went from 10 to 40 against the pound, and then about 10 to 30 something against the dollar. And now it's sort of stabilized, and we're about 20 something against the dollar, and we're I think just over 30 against the pound. So it makes things more expensive for myself now. But because when you have a currency crisis like that, inflation kicks in. Things have become expensive. Now, while parts of the population are doing extremely well, certainly those in IT, certainly those in property, certainly those in whoever's in charge of building nice places like this. But some people are being left behind. Now, while you won't see that many homeless people in Ukraine, they do exist. They're living close to the pipes, close in basements or something. But unlike in London, where you see them everywhere, you generally don't see many of them sort of begging or anything. Sorry? Okay, it's filming. See, someone else is filming now. So, and they're even, I mean, there's money pouring into place. They're even, I don't know if I can see it. It must be a very long shot. It might be television. It might be a movie. But it's a shame, because that is a nice little area to sit down in. I don't know. What's strange is I don't see the cameras yet. I just don't think she wanted me to walk around. So it's one of these things. See, everyone's being told they can't walk there, but the shot must be there must be a camera crew high up or something. I don't get it. Time is short, and I don't have time to sort of sit around for a student project or a big budget film. I can get back on it now. There's a little bird feeder. I mean, obviously, if you come here in the spring, this is a far, far prettier walk. But even in the winter, and this is this is just before the snow's about to arrive. We've still got a few leaves stuck on the trees. This one's got a little bit more, but most of the trees have lost most of their leaves. Everyone's almost set for winter. I mean, it's cold. See, I'm wearing a scarf right now. I'm wearing about 6 layers. I feel the cold easily. Notice enough satellite dishes on that building down there. So I even just heard a German chap back there. I tell you, 4 or 5 years ago when the revolution was happening, it was pretty rare to hear a selection of foreign accents. But now, judging by what I saw on Saturday, there were Chinese people, the Japanese people, the Korean people, French people, all walks of life were here. I don't know what inspired them to come here. Hopefully they've been paying attention to YouTube and they thought, well, actually, I'm going to come check out this wonderful city that is Kyiv. But it is nice to see that the city is improving. It is nice to see that things like this are happening. This pathway is incredibly new. like, this pathway did not exist when I made my original video. I stress that again. None of this existed. I think there used to be a wall that used to be here and maybe some railings. I don't know, but I can't quite remember. Actually, to be honest, I'm surprised it took that long before I saw a coffee place. Normally, there'd be coffee places everywhere, certainly in the summer anyway. Certainly along these walkways, people set up their little stalls and everything. But it just goes to show that it is a little bit quiet because it's cold. It is a Tuesday. It's not the weekend. But here we are. This is Podil. This is pretty much the start of Podil, where this church is. You might remember this church from my previous video. At the time it was under construction still. It was closed, you couldn't go in, and it's still closed and you still can't go in. So I'm not going to climb up to the top of there. But if you do, that's the start of a very beautiful street that's cobbled and you can go all the way down into Podil, but I'm going to see if this path takes us a slightly different route, because at the end of the day this is a new path. That is the Church of St. Andrews. It's an Eastern Orthodox church. And look, here we go. This is similar to what you get at the top of Podil with all the people painting. And look, there's my city, London. You know, don't have to go too far until I see something that reminds me of home. But it's as you can see, a nice place to sort of walk. Very, very peaceful, very chilled out. Nothing better than the sound of crows. Well, maybe a few things better. I think knowing where I am on the map, and actually just knowing where I am in my head, this is the last bit of the viewing platform view, because as soon as we head that way, we were into the city. And down here is, well, effectively this is Podil down here. You can go down. They're equivalent to the Podil London Eye. You can go on that. It's pretty much the main square. And going from the church there, which is next to the eye, there's a straight road that takes you all there. Is pretty much the edge of Podil, and it kind of begins there, and all that direction is Podil. And then obviously where the skyscrapers are, that is Obolon. And that is where I'm going to go. See, as you can see, all types of art, a little bit for everyone, even people that like cats. This is probably one of the best places you can come, and also the streets above, if you're just after a sort of an art and you're looking to support the local people, you can obviously bargain them depending on the price, but obviously bid them what you think is fair. Have a price in mind. If it's these people are trying to make a living in the day, so please don't try and rip them off. They're not going to sell it to you anyway. I appreciate that if the price is too low, but at the same time, most of these people are very honest people. They're not going to charge you inflated prices. Just to bid what you think is fair from your country's perspective. Like if you would pay this you'd pay X in America or X in France, pay that, or pay slightly under, but don't. You got to earn a living somehow. Obviously, if you walk down this street or up this street in the winter, and I'm talking about the winter when there's snow and ice, please make sure you've got grips on your shoes, because I've seen a lot of people fall on their ass walking down this street or even just walking up the street. There's a couple of interesting bars along this street. I think just here is a very interesting bar. My experience was the few times I've been there, they play good techno. Obviously, if you watch a lot of my videos, you know that that's one of the requirements for a good bar. But just down there, it's a good view as well. Not actually open at the moment. And then obviously, if you fancy coffee, there's always these little coffee places. These are the best places to go. But notice on the other side of the street, and I think it's probably a good idea to cross the street and try not to shake the camera too much, because you look at the road, it really is quite uneven. But over here, people are selling little knickknacks, things that they've made themselves. This lady, I'm pretty sure, has knitted a lot of this stuff. It's around here, which is probably the best places to come if you're into buying souvenirs and supporting the local people. They're setting up stalls by themselves. They are. Some of them even make this stuff. This is one of the Kiev breweries. The beer is okay. There's some amazing breweries which I think I will try to cover in my next video. But this is a nice little microbrewery. You can obviously get a selection of beers. You can try which one you like the most. Reasonably decent beer. My favourites are elsewhere, but that's a reasonable place to come. The sun has safely disappeared, so I can now actually take my sunglasses off. So there's my eyes, probably showing my tiredness from too much excess. So generally you've got two ways to go. You can go this way, and this will take you directly to the wheel, or you can go this way, and this will take you an alternative way to the top of Podil, and this way you'll find a lot more. It kind of takes you to the busy side of Podil and a lot more interesting sort of bars, cocktail bars, beer bars. That's the way to go. But if you're into the more sort of tourist trail, you go that way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make both journeys on a different set of videos. If you liked any of this, if you hated it, give it a thumbs down. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, but also leave a comment. I'd love to hear your responses. Obviously, slightly different formats. I don't want to make the video too long. I really appreciate the fact you've been watching. Next video, I will take one of these routes and we'll go see what else is in Kiev. I appreciate the fact you've been watching. I'm the Wandering Englishman, Alex, and click subscribe and hopefully see you in the next episode. Cheers.